Many times we want a relationship so much. We want a man in our lives so much. We want love so much that we totally ignore or minimize red flags. We enter into a relationship knowing very well that there's one flag or multiple red flags that are there, but we turn our heads, kind of pretending that they're not there, or we tell ourselves that, it's not that big of a deal. Yet these become the very reason that we wind up with a broken heart later on, having wasted years, sometimes even decades of our lives, and the experience has drained us of so much energy. Well, I do not want this to happen to you, so I'm here to help you by providing 5 red flags in men, signs that you should never ignore. My name is Kimberly Anderson, and I provide dating and relationship advice to help women reconnect with themselves, live their best lives, and navigate the world of dating and relationships successfully in their path to love. And in this video, I am going to talk to you about 5 red flags in men, the signs you should not ignore to save you pain, to save you time, and to save you heartbreak. They will help you think straight when you feel dizzy-headed by how intelligent, how handsome, how charming, and witty he is. But before we get into it, if you're finding this video helpful, please hit the subscribe button, like the video, share this video, and comment below. What is a red flag that you think that we should not ignore when dating a man? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And as I said at the beginning of this video, it is so easy to know that there's a red flag or multiple red flags, but despite knowing they exist, that a red flag is there, we tend to ignore it or pretend it isn't there. And this can be really dangerous as we're only really fooling ourselves, right? We often talk ourselves into accepting the unacceptable in the name of desiring love, and it winds up biting us later on. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not saying that as soon as you see an indicator that you think is a red flag, that you immediately, raise your red flag warning signs and go running for the hills. Unless it's something major, of course, like violence. That's totally different. But I suggest that if you see a red flag and you properly and effectively try to address the red flag and it's not corrected, then yes, you should move on and let them go, right? Because you did your part. You gave them the opportunity to correct the issue. So let's talk about the first flag out of 5 that I'm going to talk about here. And again, these are only 5 flags. There are many more. And that's why I'd like for you to share some of your red flags in the comments. All right, here goes. Number 1, his words do not align with his actions. So he says one thing that leads you in one direction, and you're not seeing the actions that go with what he's saying. I have experienced this firsthand, and a lot of the women that I work with talk to me about this one. All right, so let's go with an example here. One of my clients, let's call her Sally. Okay, she told me that she met this guy online. Let's call him Robert. Robert fit so much of what she was looking for, right? He was tall, smart, witty, and she really also found him very physically attractive. Sally was super excited, right? Because she and Robert were texting back and forth. He was super charming. He's funny and he's engaging, and they seemed to have so much in common. And after a lot of laughing and flirting together online, Robert invited Sally to meet for drinks. Well, when they met in person, they had a super fun time talking and laughing, and their connection felt so real, and there was definite chemistry there. Robert told Sally that they should get together for lunch or drink sometime soon, and Sally said she'd love to. She was feeling really overjoyed, and like she may even have just met the one. Robert messaged Sally that night, wishing her a good night's sleep, and Sally responded wishing Robert sweet dreams, and she kind of sank into her covers and felt all cozy and fuzzy, right? Sally was happy that she'd finally met somebody that she really liked, and she started projecting images of the two of them into the future in her head, right? She was so excited. And the next day, there were no messages from Robert. And Sally felt a bit anxious because she was so eager to hear from Robert, but she thought, maybe he's just busy at work, right? She felt really distracted at work, and she was daydreaming about Robert and their conversation and imagining them going out on the town together, maybe even traveling together. 3 days after the date, nothing from Robert, right? So Sally started to feel a bit confused. She began worrying, and she decided to finally message Robert asking how he was and saying that she was really looking forward to lunch together. right? Robert responded the next day saying that he'd been busy and that, yeah, they should go out to lunch. But Robert didn't follow up. He never fixed the lunch date and kept Sally hanging for days on end that turned into then weeks on end, right? And in the meantime, Sally, wanting to make things work with Robert, texted him another time only to get a vague message back from Robert. And this made her feel nervous and upset and not knowing what she'd done wrong. They'd had such a great connection together and their date was perfect in so many ways. And Sally kept hoping and waiting on Robert. And into month 2, she started to feel really down and confused. And she was kind of even wondering, am I starting to feel depressed here? Here's the thing, and why when actions don't align with words that it's a red flag. Because when a man is taking too long to respond to calls or texts, it often indicates that you are just not a priority. You're like a bit of an afterthought. Now, there can be a host of reasons for this, right? But ultimately, if a man is really interested and motivated in spending time with you, if he is really into you and is ready to move forward in a relationship, listen to these words. He will. His actions will match his words. His actions will be consistent. Let's go to lunch means he will actually set up the lunch date with you and meet you there. So if he promises to take you out to the theater or to dinner, but he cancels last minute, multiple times without giving you valid reasons, or if he tells you that he's looking for a serious relationship, but he consistently avoids making plans, for the future, these actions contradict his words, indicating that he's probably not being sincere with you. This can be really hurtful, right? As we women, we can tend to just sit there waiting days, weeks, sometimes months, daydreaming and texting him and hoping he'll take action. But if he's not showing you through his actions that he's interested, move on, sister. So how do you save yourself from the disappointment and the heartbreak? Well, you ask yourself a simple question. Do his actions match his words? And a quick reminder, if you haven't, please subscribe to my channel and like this video. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Now let's move on to the next red flag, and that is number 2. He wants you to split or pay for the date. Now here's the thing. If you are uncomfortable with a man taking you out and you want to pay your share of the bill, that is totally, of course, your choice. You do what you're comfortable with. But it's not what I recommend to my clients, as I believe a masculine man are providers and protectors. Now, this does not mean that he needs to pay for everything for you, for your entire life. But if he invites you on a date and he chooses where to go, and then he asks you to split or pay for the date, then that is a red flag. And the reason this is a red flag is that he is not investing in you in any way. If he is not earning a ton of money, he can always invite you for a coffee. He can invite you for a walk and an ice cream in the park. There are always tons of options. You see, a masculine man feels a desire for a woman when he has to make an effort for her. So whether this be monetary or it be making an effort in some other way, like helping her carry something heavy or helping her solve a problem that she has, if he does not have to make any effort for you or shows that he doesn't want to make any effort for you, it shows that he's not very serious or he's not invested in you. It could also be a precursor to him asking you for money. I know so many women who get into relationships with men and they wind up, paying for their dates together, taking them out to dinner, going to the movies, or even, paying for their vacations, paying their car loans, paying for their house payments. Many times these same men don't even treat these women very well and they're being financially abused. But this is a whole different topic, right? But in short, if a man doesn't invest in a relationship, it is unlikely that he really is interested and respects you, whether he's consciously aware of it or not. So if you start off on dates where a man invites you out and is then asking you to split the bill or to cover the check, this is definitely a red flag, no matter how charming he is. And if you would like a fabulous girlfriend to help mentor you and help you navigate your journey to love, check out the link in the description. I provide mentoring and all sorts of support to help women like you, so please check it out. All right, the third red flag is love bombing. Okay, So this is an interesting one. What is love bombing? It is when a man showers you with excessive compliments about your appearance, about your personality, your accomplishments, despite not knowing you well. Okay, so he may use phrases like, "You're perfect," or "I've never met anyone like you." This excessive flattery can feel really overwhelming and insincere, and that he's more interested in winning you over superficially, than getting to really know the real you. And this usually happens really right at the very beginning of the first text exchanges. So if you've met online, for example, it'll be in the very first words that he sends you through text, or if it's in person, the very first words when you exchange. While I do believe in the magic of love at first sight, like when David Beckham saw Victoria Beckham, immediately he knew he wanted to marry her, it is unlikely to be the case with online dating, right? Because you haven't even seen each other in real life. And unfortunately, the charm of love bombing is far more common than genuine instant connection. Now, I can remember one of my clients telling me about a man that she'd met online, and he called her the love of his life in the very first message to her, right? Every single message to her, he would call her my love, my future love. She told me that she knew it couldn't be sincere, but it just felt so good. And, she felt that something special was there. She felt desired and she felt desirable. So human, right? So she told him in the beginning as well, she was looking for a relationship, and he said that he was looking for a relationship too with the right woman. Yet every message from him was very superficial, very flirty, asking, what she was wearing to bed each evening, and told her that he was thinking of her and how beautiful she was. There were little to no questions about her interests in life, yet his flattery made her feel so special that she was really wooed by all of his compliments. When they finally met in person, he confessed that he wasn't really looking for a relationship, and my client felt so disappointed because she felt this special chemistry and he seemed so attracted to her. While I totally believe in the importance of a man desiring a woman and giving her genuine compliments as part of his desire to court her and to attract her, you do need to be wary of love bombing, as it definitely does exist, right? So how do you avoid love bombing? Well, you just ask yourself, has he asked me much about me? My interests, my hobbies, my way of living? Has he tried to get to know me beyond, charming me and talking me about superficial things with sexual innuendos? If he hasn't, he is very likely love bombing you. And if you seek a genuine connection, you are likely to get hurt, as his motivations are not aligned with yours, right? Okay, so the fourth red flag is he is controlling. Now, this red flag is particularly concerning, as it's important to distinguish between a man who's confident, has a masculine demeanor, and one that's domineering and potentially abusive, right? They're two different things. And in a practical sense, controlling behavior can manifest in a couple different ways, like dictating what you should wear, deciding what you should eat, or invading your privacy by demanding to see your phone. Now, no matter how charming he may seem, do not ignore these red flags. They're serious indicators of deeper issues. And I'm going to give you 2 examples of what controlling behavior looks like in a dating situation. The first one I experienced myself a long time ago. I was, sharing a few photos on my phone with a man I was on a date with, and he literally took the phone out of my hand and started scrolling through my photos. I was so surprised and so caught off guard. I didn't know what to do. So I said, "Hey, that's my phone." And I took it back. To which he replied, "I'm just testing your boundaries." That same date of mine was extremely attractive, charming, and smart. And he also told me that women in his life needed to wear clothes that he wanted them to wear, and how important this was to him. Now, needless to say, I never saw him again, but it's a really good example of how control can manifest in a man's behavior. Another example is when you're on a date and the waiter comes to take your drink order, right? And instead of asking you, "What would you like to drink?" he tells the waiter, "We'll have 2 glasses of wine, please," totally disregarding whether you even like wine or not. These controlling actions demonstrate a lack of respect for your autonomy and boundaries, and is a warning sign of potential issues with your power dynamics and trust in the relationship. Now, the 5th red flag has to do with substance abuse problems. So if he is frequently intoxicated when you're talking on the phone or when you go out together, right? If he spends excessive amounts of money on gambling or drugs or exhibits behavior due to substance abuse issues, this is definitely a red flag. Now, this may seem obvious, right? But sadly, substance abuse problems can really take a while to show their heads as the person practicing the substance abuse tries to hide it until you're emotionally invested in the relationship. I've seen substance abuse issues firsthand in my family and with my clients, and I know how these behaviors can lead to erratic behavior, financial instability, and emotional turmoil that makes it really challenging to have healthy, stable relationships. And if you have a pattern of substance abuse problems in your family and your childhood, you're very likely a good candidate to be a codependent and potentially start enabling that man's behavior. Now, addictions can be very, very destructive and confusing. So if he's excessively drinking and drunk when you're together, and there are excuses like, oh, I've had a tough day or week, don't worry, I can handle my alcohol, I've got a high tolerance, or come on, let's not be so serious, we're here to have fun, aren't we? If you hear these types of comments and see a drinking pattern of any type, a pattern of addiction, you need to be honest with yourself and see this as a red flag. And if you become involved with somebody who has substance abuse problems, I really suggest that you seek help by a 12-step program like Al-Anon. That's for family and friends of alcoholics. And to, really understand the dynamics that addiction plays on all parties involved. Now, before you get into a relationship with someone exhibiting these behaviors, it's important to have these red flags on your radar. It's far better to recognize these warning signs earlier than to look back later and wish you'd seen them earlier. And that's why I'm making this video to help you identify the red flags to watch out for. Now, this said, while it is important to be aware of red flags, I also believe that what we focus on amplifies. What we focus on amplifies. So be mindful of red flags, but don't obsess over them, right? To the point where you start seeing them everywhere. Know what red flags are and understand that you can try to address them. And if they haven't been corrected, that's your signal to move on. Trust your intuition and your gut. I hope this video was helpful for you. Thanks for watching as usual, and I'm sending you lots of love.